Hey everybody, this is Bob with another audio tutorial. In this video, we'll take a look at bus compression. So let's start by defining bus compression, and then we'll talk about why you want to use it. And I have a practical example that we'll take a listen to. So what is bus compression anyway? Well, really, it's no different than any other compressor that you may have used on individual tracks and instruments. And the only difference here is that bus compression applies a compressor to a group of instruments. For example, when I'm recording a drum kit, I use 9 microphones and I record 9 different tracks. Then I bus those tracks out to a stereo aux that I name drum bus. I would typically use bus compression on that aux track for my entire kit. Now you could do something similar to this with guitars or synths or whatever. By the way, unrelated to compression, you may be asking yourself, why do I want to submix drums or guitars or vocals and then bus them to an aux? And that really boils down to simplifying your mixing process by just having 6 faders or 8 faders to deal with instead of 30 tracks, for example. So back to the bus compression. In my example today, I'm going to apply bus compression to the entire mix. So I'm going to put this compressor on my mix bus. This is your stereo out, where all of your tracks are routed. Some DAWs may call this the master bus, the stereo bus, the master fader, whatever. So I created a stereo aux and I labeled this mix bus right here, my mix bus. Okay, great. So we defined bus compression. Now, why do we want to use it? What does it do? Now, I've heard this described a couple of different ways, including statements like, it makes your mix more cohesive. It glues your mix together. And these are great adjectives to describe this, but when I first heard this, I really didn't understand it. It took some listening and some experimenting and some experience to really develop an ear for this. But let me give you my description or how I think of mix bus compression. So if I have guitars, bass, drums, piano, and vocal tracks, it sounds like the mix is a little wild, or maybe a better word for it is uncontained. To me, it sounds like every player or your instruments are in the corners of the room. Maybe some are outside of the room or in the hallway, or somebody's in the closet, but they have the door open. So by adding mix bus compression, everyone gets together in the same room and forms a tight circle. This is what it sounds like to me and how I visualize it. So it makes sense that some people describe this process as gluing the mix together. So what compressor should I use, and what about the settings? Now, there are several model bus compressors that do this very well, and I'm using one of the more popular ones, the Waves G Master bus compressor. It looks like so. This is one plugin I could not do without. I'll put a link in the description. But you can use your stock DAW compressor if you set it correctly. If you have the option of changing the circuit type, like Logic stock compressor, change it to VCA. Now, one word of caution. Anything you put on your mix bus or master bus is going to affect the entire mix, right? If you were using EQ, for example, let's say you wanted to add some airiness by adding an 8K shelf. Keep in mind that this is adding 8K to your vocals, to your guitars, and it may sound great until someone hits the crash cymbal. Then you might create a problem. So I'm very careful about what treatment I use on my mix bus, and this compressor is no exception. So easy does it here. Now for the settings. The default for the SSL compressor works great except for the attack time. You have to use the slowest attack setting so you don't kill the transients. So that's where you want it. You want a slow attack time. So if you have drums in your mix, you'll kill the kick and the snare if you have a fast attack time. Basically, you want a slow attack and a fast release. So you can see I have the slowest attack time and I have the fastest release. I have it set at a 4-to-1 ratio. You can do 2-to-1 or 4-to-1. Slowest attack time, the fastest release time, and then you pull down the threshold until you get 2 or 3 dB of gain reduction, and then you make up that gain, and then you level match it. So I'll run through the process here. Let me go over to the chorus. It's my loudest part. I have the most going on there, and we'll go ahead and set this thing. I'll move this threshold up here, and I'll show you what I do. After I do these settings, then all I have to do now is just pull the threshold down. So here we go. Cascading for the game, in line with your blue. So watch the meter right here, and you'll see it starting to work. And we're looking for, it's going to bounce around about 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction. You're just going to make up the gain to level match it. So just use your ears here while you're bypassing. Okay, so here we go. Cascading for the game. So when I go into the bypass and then unbypass the plug-in, you should not be able to hear a big difference in the volume. So that's what I'm going for here. Cascading for the game. Now bypass. So what I had to do is set it about 2 dB. So overall, I'm reducing the gain by 2 dB, and I make it up, and therefore we are reducing the dynamic range of the whole mix. Now, don't confuse this process with mastering. I do this in the mixing stage on nearly every mix. So let's take a listen now and just see if you can kind of picture everybody coming together in the room, kind of all in the same place, and it kind of tightens up the mix. So here we go with the chorus again. You can just watch, I'll bypass and unbypass the plug-in. Cascading for the game, in line with your blues, hanging on to every word, I'm playing for you. Go to the lead section of the song a little bit, maybe a little more going on there. Maybe you can hear that a little bit better. It's a subtle change, so see if you can pick it up here in this lead section. So you see how that just kind of brings everything together. It's a great plug-in. It's a great process to use. So this is one of the first things that I do very early on in the mixing process to get instant improvement and gratification. I may do this when I just have a couple of tracks, but as you're building your tracks, as you're adding more instruments, you have to go back and you have to adjust the threshold so you're not over compressing or compressing too much. So remember, just a couple of dB will do here. You want this compressor to basically be transparent. So there you go, a great way to bring everything together when mixing. Let's just call it the audio glue. Thanks for watching. Please comment and subscribe. And if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.